AEW Dynamite starts off with Darby Allin. He cuts a promo. Well, he just calls out Brody King because last week on Collision, Brody King ended up attacking Darby because he made an open challenge for his match at Wrestle Dream, and Brody King ended up accepting it. Then Darby Allin basically ends up cutting a promo to Brody, ends up giving their backstory of how they met and how they both came to AEW, and how Darby Allin is the reason for Brody King to be in AEW. Then he ends up saying that Brody King attacked him because he wants everything that Darby has and he wants to take Darby Allin's spot. Then Brody King ends up admitting that Darby Allin is right, but he doesn't take what he has for granted, and that he doesn't have a death wish due to Darby Allin, doing, his wild wrestling style, his wild stunts, wanting to climb Mount Everest and all that. And he ends up mentioning that what happens when you can't wrestle anymore? What happens when you can't wrestle anymore? What happens to your family whenever you can't provide for them? Then Darby ends up basically wanting Brody King to attack him, but Brody King refused. Then Darby ends up slapping Brody King. Brody King ends up slapping Darby Allin. Brody King was getting the advantage, but then Darby Allin out of nowhere pulls out a rock and starts hitting Brody King with the rock. And then he ends up hitting Brody King in the face with the rock. Brody King starts bleeding, and then security comes out. I'm interested in the story to a degree. I wonder, is the House of Black going to be involved in the story, which I think would make it even more interesting, but we'll see how that plays out. But their match at Wrestle Dream should be a banger, though. Now we end up getting a quick promo with Daniel Garcia. He kind of rambles on a bit, but basically he's coming for gold. He's coming for gold, and he wants AEW gold around his waist. So we'll see how this plays out. We already know how AEW does with Daniel Garcia. They push him, then they stop. They push him, then stop. Push him, then stop. So we'll see if they actually push through and actually push him, but we'll see how this goes. Now, the only championship I really see him winning as a single star is the TNT championship, which I actually think can actually be a good story for him if they ever want to pull the story from the elite and all that. But I think the TNT championship will be perfect for him, but because he's not winning the international and he's definitely not winning the world championship. So we'll see if they actually pull the trigger on Daniel Garcia. Now we am getting a fatal four-way match for the number one contendership for Mariah May AEW Women's World Championship. Just gonna be quick about this. Willow Nightingale ends up winning. This match really shouldn't even be happening because three of the women shouldn't even be in the number one contendership. You could argue Willow Nightingale shouldn't be in this match because Nyla, she just lost to Mariah May already, so I don't know why she's in here. Jamie Hare and Saraya, same thing. I don't know why they're there, especially Saraya because she's been losing. I can't remember the last time she won a match, so why is she here? Willow Nightingale lost to Chris Statlander, so why is Chris Statlander not in this position? Like, it just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. I know she's feuding with Mariah May. I get that point, but still. Willow Nightingale picks up the victory. After the match, she ends up getting attacked by Mariah May, build up their feud towards Wrestle Dream, which is the Saturday. So we'll see how that match plays out. Most likely Mariah May will end up picking up the victory. Now we end up getting Mercedes Moné versus Emmy. I think that's her name. Not going to speak too much on this match as well. Mercedes Moné ends up picking up the victory. After the match, Mercedes and Camille tries to attack her, but Chris Statlander ends up coming out to make the save. Okay, I'm interested in this feud. Yes. Does this feud make any sense? No, it does not. Because why is Chris Statlander a babyface? Why? It makes no sense. You can't just go from feuding with your best friend as a heel, win the feud, and then turn face after winning the feud with no buildup. There was no buildup. They just turned her face, made Stokely and Chris not be a thing anymore for whatever reason. But it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. I don't know what AEW is doing with their booking. I don't know what Tony Khan is thinking. This show was all over the place with their booking. Like Title Tuesday, I don't know why they did this because this was just all over the place. And plus, there was no titles really defended on the show. Now, I understand that some of the titles were just recently defended, but still, this was just all over the place, if I'm just being honest. This show was just all over the place. Like, the things that they're just doing just don't make sense. It's just not aligning. And it's getting harder and harder to watch this show because this is one of the worst shows I have watched in AEW since I became a fan of AEW. But man, this was just a very tough watch to just watch what's just going on, especially with some of the decisions that they are making. But yeah, this just makes no sense. I'm interested to see how the match, whenever they face each other, play out. But man, this just didn't make no sense at all. Now we end up getting Will Ospreay, Don Callis. Basically, Will Ospreay basically asked Don Callis, did he ask Tenosuke Takeshita to attack him during his match? Don Callis tries to avoid the question. He tries to flip it and tries to ask, Will Ospreay a question, but Will Ospreay kept on applying pressure towards him, and kept on, asking the question over and over again. Was he the one that sent to Konosuke Takeshita to attack him? Don Callis finally admits it and gives his reasoning. Basically, his reasoning was that he got frustrated and tired of Will Ospreay disobeying him and not following through with his orders and constantly not following his advice during his matches whenever he interferes. They go back and forth for a bit. Don Callis ends up slapping Will Ospreay, and Will Ospreay then tries to attack Don Callis, but then Konosuke Takeshita is coming out. As Tenosuke was getting the upper hand, no, Will Ospreay was getting the upper hand actually. Kyle Fletcher ends up coming out, ends up distracting Will Ospreay, which allowed Konosuke to get the advantage once again. Don Callis tries to give Kyle Fletcher the screwdriver to use on Will Ospreay, but he ends up refusing to use it, and he ends up just leaving the ring, which doesn't make sense because it's like he's confused whether or not he wants to be. I don't know. It didn't make sense to me because it was like you don't want to attack him, but you also don't want to attack Don Callis and Konosuke, which I don't understand because if Will Ospreay is really your best friend, I feel like you would just side with him, but I don't know. Maybe I'm just overthinking it. But he just leaves the ring and just allows Konosuke to attack Will Ospreay. Then Ricochet comes out of nowhere, ends up making a save, and that's the end of the segment here. This segment was very weird because of the whole Kyle Fletcher thing, but I'm excited for the match. But like I said, the booking of this show is just all over the place and just very inconsistent. It makes little to no sense. There was some other stuff too that happened in the show that I'm going to get to towards the end of the video because this show was all over the place. We end up getting towards the main event. Bryan Danielson, Yuta versus Pac and Claudio. I didn't watch too much of this match because I just didn't care because I kind of knew how this match was going to play out. Bryan and Yuta, of course, picks up the victory. After the match, Moxley and Bryan ends up brawling all the way towards the backstage, but then they end up making their way back towards the ring. Yuta basically gets attacked by Pac and Claudio. Bryan Danielson ends up making a save. Okay, now we got that out the way. There were some other things on the show that just didn't make sense. Like, we get Hologram and Commander. I understand Hologram is someone they've been building up on Collision, but why debut him on Dynamite on your go-home show? That makes zero sense. Why do this? That makes no sense. You debut him on your go-home show when we know that he's probably, well, he might be on Wrestle Dream depending on if he has a match on Collision or some sort, but makes no sense. Why debut him on your go-home show? That makes no sense. Like, that just didn't make any sense to have this match. Same thing. Earlier in the show, they did this weird trade with Jake the Snake Roberts and Don Callis where they get one person, they end up making a trade for one of the members of the, their families or whatever. Roosh is now a part of Jake the Snake Roberts, and then Lance Archer is now a part of the Don Callis family, which, who cares? Because Roosh, let's be honest, Roosh doesn't do anything in AEW that's that important. And then Lance Archer, you could argue the same thing. So I don't understand. Now, I'm assuming Lance Archer is going to be like their new muscle because I don't know where Powerhouse Hobbs is at. I think he was injured for a bit. Maybe I'm wrong, but he might be their new muscle. So he could be a part of that. But again, just why? It just felt like AEW's just throwing things out there. They're just throwing things and hope it lands, but without thinking it through. I don't know. But then you also had another moment where Chris Jericho is trying to recruit Rocky Romero. Like, who cares about Rocky Romero? Like, seriously, like, it's like some things I just don't understand what they're doing here. Like, it's like some things I understand the vision. Like, for example, Chris Statlander and Mercedes. I understand the vision. I understand the idea. It doesn't make sense why Chris Statlander is a babyface, but I understand the idea. But then there's things like this where it's just like, why? What? Like, seriously, like, why do we need this story with Chris Jericho and Rocky Romero? Like, really, like, seriously. This show was all over the place. Title Tuesday didn't make any sense because there was only one title defended, and of course it would be the most predictable title outcome ever. But I'm just done going on my rant. This episode of Dynamite was just a complete waste of time, completely garbage. You guys let me know your opinions down below. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe. But yeah, that's it.